Right, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, good middle of the night. I don't know where you are in the world, but thank you very much for joining us for this live webinar. There's over 100 of you on already, which is fantastic. This is actually going to be our record-breaking webinar, I think, because we've had over 800 of you register to join us. So I hope all 800 of you are here tonight. Thank you very much. My name is Lorraine Dahlmeyer, and I'm the Director of Formula Botanica. We're the accredited online organic cosmetic science school. And for those of you who don't know us, we teach online courses for people who want to learn how to formulate organic cosmetics or start their own natural skincare business, as you can see on the page. We have over 2,000 students now in 95 countries, so growth has been pretty insane for us because natural skincare is the way forward. Green beauty is here to stay. So we've been running webinars like this over the last couple of years. We haven't done one for a few months now because we had a massive upgrade on our e-learning platform in March, which was great. And since then I've been sort of recovering a little bit because it was such an exhausting time for us. But we're back tonight. And in fact, we're back with the guest we also hosted in February, which is Melinda Koss. I'm sure you guys aren't here to see me, you're here to see Melinda. And that webinar in February was also really exciting because Melinda talked about, do you have what it takes to start your own skincare business? And over 1,000 people ended up watching that webinar, or it was watched over 1,000 times anyway, which was, it sort of really resonated with a lot of you, I think. So tonight we wanted to host a similar webinar for you called Fear of Selling. What holds you back when selling your products? What keeps you awake at night? Are you placing the right value on your brand? And Melinda has walked in your shoes. We like inviting in guests who know exactly what they're talking about, who've been there, who've experienced it, who've done it. And Melinda absolutely fits the bill for that. So she's going to be talking about her own experience and sharing that with you. So before I hand over to Melinda, just a few housekeeping things. There will be a replay, and I'm going to send it out to you tomorrow. So it will be in your inbox within the next 24 hours. So please be patient with me because I've got to get all the page up and get the email ready and everything. So there will be a replay, and it will be time limited, so you can watch it again within about 1 or 2 weeks. I haven't quite decided what the time limit's going to be yet. This webinar tonight is for you, so please keep that in mind. There's not going to be a presentation, there's no gloss to it. We're not going to sit here pitching our products at you for the next half hour. We want to have a conversation with you. So on your screen, I think it's up here, there's a little question mark, which is the Q&A box. And if you click on that, you can type in any questions there. They'll come straight through to me. I'm going to be reading them throughout the webinar. I'm going to be interviewing Melinda with these questions. So the more questions you ask us, the better the webinar is going to be because we're going to be chatting with you the whole way through. And that's really it. There's also a chat box where you can chat with each other. I might be in there a little bit as well, although I'm obviously going to be talking to Melinda throughout the webinar, so I won't be too chatty tonight, unfortunately. And I'm going to hand over to Melinda so she can introduce herself and say good evening. Over to you, Melinda.
Hi. Hello, Lorraine. Thank you for the introduction. And hello, everyone. There's a few familiar names I can see on there. It wasn't Coronation Street on tonight, Lorraine. We've got 127 people. Okay, yeah. So I'm Melinda Koss, and I've written a few books, 3 on soap making, which you may have seen. And I also, about 15 years ago, started a company manufacturing soap and ended up selling it to all the supermarkets. We were ultimately the biggest handmade soap company in the UK. So I started that journey in my kitchen. And went through all the growing pains that you are either going through or are about to go through. And the biggest growing pain, I think, was learning to have the courage to sell. These days I mentor people who are trying to start their own companies. I help them along the way through a mentoring program. And that is probably the biggest hurdle, that they spend an awful lot of time and energy and excellence on their products and their branding, but somehow this question of how are we going to sell it gets pushed to the back. There's a definite fear about it. And really, um, it's an unnecessary fear, because providing you've done all your branding correctly and you've identified who your target market is, it isn't actually up to you to sell the product, it's up to the product to sell the product. Do you get that, Lorraine? If you, I mean, we all go in to see buyers, and I think the fear is, what are they going to ask us? Am I good enough? Is my product good enough? And really, most of those questions should have been addressed before you even approached a buyer. So, buyers are human beings. And humankind basically want to be liked, and they want to be respected, and they want to be understood more than anything. And your customer, be it a retail person, a retail buyer, or your end consumer, wants all those things too. The issue that you have is that once you've gone in and done your spiel to the buyer, that product range is sitting on the shelf of a shop. The only thing that is actually going to talk to the client is your range. And therefore, your range has to say all those things that you need it to, i.e. who it's for, what it does, what experience it will give the client. And if you've got that straight, your job when you're visiting a buyer is to make them like you. It's ever so simple. it's to make them like you. I feel like I'm talking non-stop. Do you want to stop me? Do you want to interrupt me, or shall I just go on?
No, well, I think what might be interesting to talk about is what exactly do you mean by fear of selling? Because that's obviously the title for the webinar. So
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
Well, a fear of selling is a huge nervousness that you're going to be made to feel small, that you're going to be made to feel not good enough, that you're actually being called upon to justify all that passion that you've put into your. So I think and please note this, the one great advantage that a small skincare entrepreneur has is that they create their products with passion. That just goes without saying. So if you were a big company, if you were a Lever Brothers or whatever, you would be a salesperson that was at the meeting to talk about numbers. The small entrepreneur often is so wrapped up in their passion and their product that when they get to the meeting, they talk too much about themselves. They don't understand that what they have to do is establish an empathy with the buyer and to understand what the buyer's particular agenda is, what their problems are, and what reasons they might have for buying or not buying. So the fear is not being able perhaps to verbalize. You go in thinking that you've got to talk about your product, and you haven't. You have to some degree. You have to have all your basic commercial pieces in place because you have to come across as being professional. One of the biggest issues that a buyer has about buying from a new company is whether they can deliver, whether they will cause them hassle, whether they will be constantly on the phone asking questions, and whether they're going to back up their range with promotion and publicity and social media and all the things that we have to do in a highly competitive market.
So what would you say, sorry, back to me, what would you say the sort of promotion and publicity is that a small business would have to put behind their brand when they're talking to a buyer for instance, a large department store? What would be expected of you?
Well, initially, I think in order to get your foot in the door with a large store group, you see, I feel that as a small skincare entrepreneur, your agenda should be right at the beginning to get one key flagship store that suits your brand. And that store should be treated as much as publicity for your brand as it does as a customer who's going to give you money. You should also aim your gun at a distributor in the particular sector that you feel you'll best appeal to. Because if you've got those two things in place, you've got cash flow from the distributor underpinning your business, and you've got prestige from the store that you're in, and to answer your question, a platform for your promotion. So right at the beginning, as you're building your brand, and as soon as you have your product range, you should be out on social media. You should be hitting bloggers with your products. You should be telling a story. This is the time when you can tell the story about how you know the name of every goat that collected nuts for your argan oil. You know, this is the time when you can give all that detail about your passion and about how good the particular oils are for your skin and how it's made you look 20 years younger or whatever. These aren't actually things that your buyer is interested in, and you're going to have a limited time with your buyer. Your buyer wants to know, can you deliver, what your volumes are, whether you understand logistics to some degree, i.e. how they place their orders, where the stuff is going from, barcodes, all those sort of things. You need to have your prices very clear. You need to have packages set up to make an easy sell. So you could do a starter pack, which is, because they're going to say to you, which is your best-selling line? And you won't know that because you haven't sold to anyone before. So you need to have simple propositions. You need to keep the decision to buy in all avenues, i.e. in terms of dealing with you and dealing with the product, as simple as possible. Did that answer the question? It answered a lot of questions. But
it did. I'm going to ask you one more question.
Okay.
Because we're getting a few questions in already. So please, everyone, get your questions ready, because Melinda's here, and I have to tell you, she's very choosy about who she works with. So now's your chance to obviously get information out of her, which is great. The other question I wanted to ask you is something which someone else asked me this week. Is if you're a small indie brand and you only have, say, 2 or 3 products, or maybe even less, maybe you only have 1 product, what does a big retail outlet expect from you in terms of delivery? And you're saying they expect you to be able to deliver. What would they want? I mean, would they accept 1 product, or do they want your range to have 30 products to fill a shelf? How does that work exactly?
Okay, I think it's very unlikely that they would accept 1 product. I think that if you have 1 product, mind you, bio oil, it rather blows that in the air, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But if you have 1 product, your best bet initially is to do a direct marketing campaign by the internet, and to make that product so visible that the stores come to you for it. Because if you imagine it, a store has 1 product could be totally lost on the shelf of a department store. Yeah. Unless it has a very big and very strong story behind it. But on the social media thing, I feel that it's incredibly important that entrepreneurs build an anticipatory campaign. I talked about this in the last webinar. So they are feeding social media and Instagram with visuals and messages that excite people about the fact that the brand is coming, that the brand is about to arrive. These should go to bloggers, and also all your information, if you can get hold of the email address of the key store buyers that you want to get to, all that information should be sent to them in a newsletter as well, so that you're priming your target. You don't go in cold to a meeting with a department store. They've got to already know about you.
Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense. But I mean, what would they then expect from you in terms of volumes typically? I mean, if you're talking to, I mean, you've worked with Harrods, yes, haven't you?
Yeah,
I
have.
With the big retailers. What sort of volumes do they order?
All right. In my experience, not huge. I mean, our first order from House of Fraser was quite big. It was £9,000 worth of stock, and that was just soap. So that was relatively large. But I think our first order from Harrods after I'd had 3 meetings with them, done a couple of somersaults, repackaged everything, stood on my head, come up with something exclusive, was £500.
Yeah.
And I remember at the time thinking, what am I doing? You know, I'm in the supermarkets, I'm getting very nice orders from the supermarkets. Why am I bothering with all this? And we'd been in Harrods for 1 week, and TK Maxx came in and gave us an order for £30,000 because we were in Harrods.
Wow.
So the stores on their own, the prestige stores on their own, and more so now because of the internet as well, I think should be looked at as a PR exercise to position your brand rather than as something that's going to make you rich, because it isn't.
That makes perfect sense. And for those of you not in the UK, Harrods is a big prestige store. Okay, we've got a question here from Sally. She says, can you explain a bit more about distributors? What are they? How they operate? Where would I find them? So maybe we should explain that a little bit more.
Sure. A distributor is someone who sells to, it's a company that sells to retailers. So they sell to your shops. So they're taking an extra layer of margin off your sale. So, for example, most pharmacies like to buy their stores through distributors, because a distributor will typically carry a whole range of products, from nail brushes to face creams, that will fit into that retailer's store. So they can place one order with a distributor and get all their stock at once. So it helps them tremendously managing their stock control. So the sort of classic, just I'm frightened to say anything in case these stores, these distributors get completely flooded with Formula Botanica students. But for example, on the whole food, you know, the health market, you've got distributors like Suma and Whole Foods, and there's a number of other ones. Now, they will take anything between 33% and 60% of your wholesale price. So that could reduce your margin down to 35%, something like that. So the immediate resistance that I can feel you all going, I'm not in this to earn 35%, you know, where's my big bucks? The point is that they have long-standing relationships, sometimes with thousands of stores. So what you have to take into account when you're making the decision of whether you should deal with a distributor is how long and how much the effort of getting even a quarter of those stores, getting into even a quarter of those stores, would cost you. And I promise you it would cost you more than the margin they're taking. That margin, the level of that margin, because they all work differently, will often depend on what service they're offering. So they might actually give you a huge order and then pay for it and then sell. They might take your stock, take it to stores, get orders, and pass those orders on to you. In the latter case, the margin would be lower because there's less risk involved. So that's how they work. So they're in all sectors. So there's gift market distributors, there's health food distributors, there's supermarket, I don't know, toiletry distributors, whatever. The best place to find them is at trade shows, because they've usually got a stand and you'll recognize them because they're selling loads of different brands. They're not just selling one brand. But they take a huge amount of the initial work away from you. And also, they get you distribution and they get you known because you are suddenly in all these shops. I've got to say, you still have to go through quite a rigorous selection process to be taken on by a good distributor. And some of them might ask you to contribute towards promotional budgets. But my experience is that it's well worth it if you get a good, well-known one.
Okay. So following on from that, there's a question here from Claudia, and there's lots of questions coming in. Thank you very much, everyone. She says, how do you approach distributors or buyers like the big prestige stores? I mean, she mentions Selfridges here. We've talked about Harrods. Obviously, there are different prestige stores all over the world. How do you approach them?
Okay, Claudia. Well, first of all, as I've said, you've got to have all your ducks in a row. So once you've got all your facts and figures, what I would suggest that you do is you create, we've got email, it's wonderful, but you create a really stunning presentation with more pictures than words, and you you email it to your buyers, also to your potential buyer. You've got to prime them. They've got to have heard of you by the time you make that direct approach. That's really, really important. So how do you get their names? I mean, often they've got wise to the relationship building thing, and often they change, buyers will change every 3 or 4 months. So there's no easy way to find out the name of a current buyer. But as I said before, in addition to a distributor, you should really set your target on one particular department store. And then I would go into the department store, I would chat to the sales girls in the department, I would tell them what you're doing, I would share your passion with them and share your excitement of your brand and get some names. You could even take product in and ask her if she would get it to the buyer, because these buyers, you can send off a letter with a package of samples, but these buyers are inundated with new brands. So you have to do something a bit out of the ordinary. It's all about guerrilla marketing. It's all about creativity. It's all about knowing why your brand is special, knowing why your brand will sell in their store, and that's another key issue. Lots of people are so anxious to get sales that they go to all the wrong stores to sell their goods. So you know it's very, very hard to sell a Grecian 2000 in Mothercare. You know it kind of doesn't work, or pork chops to a rabbi, if you like. You've got to actually understand the profile of the store, who their customer is, what their challenges are. You need to map out. You need to scientifically map out how a store is behaving, who they're stocking, what the trends are, what the market trends are, what they're trying to achieve in their department. So it's a big psychology job. But bear in mind that you only need one, because once you're in a key store, the others will just follow. The others will be an easy sell.
Right. Okay, well, here's a question from Camilla. Hi, Camilla. Thank you for joining. She says, do you recommend that you find a distributor right at the start? And at what point does it make business sense to find a distributor? So following on from everything you've been talking about, when should you start to work with a distributor?
Okay, so first of all, are you ready for a distributor? Have you got the capacity to produce large amounts of stock, the financial capacity, the production capacity to produce large amounts of stock, should you be asked to? Secondly, that priming that I talked about in the social media, have you done that? Have you got enough ammunition that you can convince a distributor that you're going to be the next big thing? So as soon as those pieces are in place, I would actually start with a distributor. As I say, a distributor, you're completely raw at this. So initially, I would say a distributor and a department store. Those are your initial key targets. At the same time that that's going on, I would look at potential export, and then I would look at individual key stockists where you feel your brand should be seen or fit in. And how you get to them, how you approach them, there's no magic formula to this. It's about phoning up. It's about being persuasive. I mean, Aristotle, things haven't changed. Things haven't changed. You know, Aristotle said, you know, it's ethos, it's pathos, and it's logos. And ethos is the story behind your brand, your belief in your brand, the fact that your brand fits into the ethos of the store you're approaching. Pathos is the sympathy you have for your buyer, the empathy you have with your buyer, an understanding of what her challenges are. Because your buyer, the store buyer, is on exactly the same path as you. You want to sell goods and make money, and she wants to sell goods and make money. And in fact, it's almost harder for her because she's undoubtedly got a boss that she's got to answer to. So the decisions that she makes about who she's going to stock and why she's going to stock have to be pretty convincing. And she needs to be able to sell through. So she also wants to know that you're going to support the brand, because selling into a store is the beginning. You then have to support the brand with promotions that will drive people to the store. This all sounds like a very, very big story. And I'm not talking to people who, you know, big effort here. I'm not talking to people who are happy to have a very small lifestyle business, make products themselves, sell at a couple of local gift shops and perhaps a market. That you can do stress-free, but you won't make any money. So it's up to you what you're and why you're doing this.
Yeah. Okay, well, following on from that, we've got a question here from Annette who says, is it advisable to create a website right away when you only have 2 or 3 products? And I think I know what your answer is going to be based on what you've just said, but I'm going to hand over to you anyway.
Absolutely. I think that a website is a wonderful promotional tool for any brand, and you only need 1 product to create a website. But wow, it needs to be a powerful website. That doesn't mean it needs to be an expensive website. It's just that stock photos are a bit tired. You know, it has to tell your story. It has to talk to your end user. So this is an area, you know, if I was spending money on my, we're going back to the beginning. How do you prepare yourself to sell your brand? Why? Again, because your packaging is the only thing that talks to your client, ultimately. Unless you're doing TV advertising and telling everybody continually what this product does, what problems it solves, what it will do for your life, they're going in, they're going to see it, and that's all they're going to get. So your investment should, if you've got money that you can invest anywhere, invest it in your brand. And that should reflect onto your website. And as a small indie brand, your backstory and your journey and your differentiators are hugely important. So you need those in place before you go out to sell.
Yeah.
But yes, right at the beginning, once you've got those things in place, get your website out there. It's the cheapest form of promotion you can have.
Absolutely. And if you start blogging already, you can start generating traffic, which is, of course, very powerful as well. So yes. What did you want to say, Melinda?
Yeah, a lot of people seem to think that typically, how are you going to sell? I'm going to sell online, and they seem to think that they're going to slap up a website and the orders are going to come flooding in, and it really doesn't work that way. It can take six months before you even begin to be noticed, and then it's like 1 or 2 products a week or whatever. So there has to be, whilst I'm, e-marketing is a fantastic tool, and it's one that, obviously is getting stronger by the minute. But there are still names of stores like the Harrods, and I'm sure there's loads in the States like the Saks Fifth Avenue, whatever, that will rocket your brand if you're there. They just by being there, they give you credibility. Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah. I just to finish the Aristotle thing, ethos. So pathos is learning which buttons you can press. So your buyer, she might be hugely stressed for time. So if you sit in a meeting and ramble and tell her about those goats again, she's not going to thank you for it, because she wants the facts. She can see the product. She'll already have decided whether what your message is from the product. She wants to know if she can work with you, and if you're going to be a headache for her, and if she likes you. I mean, she's under pressure herself. She wants to like the people that she works with. Yeah, and the last thing was logos, which in this case is all the sales and organizational pieces. You need to have all those in place. So those are the three things which Aristotle reckoned were the greatest forces of persuasion.
And still relevant today.
And still relevant. Nothing's changed. Nothing's.
No.
The human condition hasn't changed at all. The psychology has got more sophisticated, but the human condition, and selling is psychology.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we've got two questions here which are pretty much the same. One from Gabriella and one from Jane in Canada. Basically, they both asked the question, I don't know if I'm ready. When is the right time to sell? How do I know when I should launch? What's your answer?
You're not ready. That's my answer. You should launch when you've got your production lined up. You don't have to have invested in it, but you know exactly where you're going to go. You know what your costings are going to be. You've got your brand and packaging designed, and you've got prototypes of it. You've got your products formulated and assessed, and you've got your message clear. You know who you're selling to. You've worked out exactly where your niche is and exactly who your customers are. Once you've got those things in place, there's actually nothing left to do except sell. And I take that question as that bit of resistance that I talked about earlier, about the fear. And what are you frightened of? If you've done your homework and you've got your brand right, you are actually, and you're going to the right buyer, you are actually giving that buyer an opportunity to have something in their store that they will make money out of. You are not, we tend to, I don't know where this comes from. There's this feeling that if we're selling something, we're going cap in hand, begging for money in return for these little humble things that we've spent, 3 years formulating, poured our hearts and souls into. And, this isn't what it's about. This is a confidence thing. I mean, my mentoring clients will tell you, there's a few of them on here, it's so much about mindset. It's so much about believing in yourself and believing in your product. And that comes from really understanding your target market and your message and being convinced yourself that it's going to sell. And from then on, it's a favor. You're doing the buyer a favor.
That's a good way of looking at it, absolutely. I mean, thank you everyone for all your questions. Sorry, go on, Melinda.
Sorry, but typically, if this is your first sale, you're doing them an even greater favor, because if you, for example, got involved with one of the major stores, they have and offered them exclusivity for a period of time, because you only need one. They're not going to make you rich, the store groups. I mean, John Lewis might help a bit, but the Harrods of this world, unless you're selling chocolate teddies with Union Jacks on them, aren't going to make you rich. So you can afford to offer to do your launch in the store, offer to work with their PRs to create a huge buzz. So that exclusivity, that excitement around this, if you've communicated that this product is the next best thing, that exclusivity actually gives the buyer an opportunity. Yeah, you're first. This is your opportunity.
Okay. Right, I was going to say thank you very much for all the questions, everyone. There's lots and lots of questions coming in. We will try and address as many as we can. Quite a few of you are typing them in the chat box, and I'm not really monitoring the chat box because there are so many questions coming into the Q&A section. So please type your questions in there so I can put them to Melinda. Otherwise, they just get lost in the chat. Here's another great question from Camilla. She says, what should we bring to a selling meeting? And there have been a couple of other questions along those lines come in. What do we have to prepare for a buyer?
Okay, samples, obviously, and samples that you can leave with the buyer, should she. Some of them won't accept them, but so that you can actually sit there and put the stuff on your hand if you must. Price lists, packages that you can suggest to sell, as I said, a starter pack or a bigger pack or a refill pack or whatever. So a complete paperwork with complete structures. A portfolio of any images, press releases, blog features, anything that's been talked about you. This could all be put into a PowerPoint presentation as well. And yourself on best form. I mean, that's about it. You should take, if you're dealing with a big store, they will send you a purchase order. If you're dealing with a small gift shop, then you need to have order forms with you, so you can actually take the order there and then.
Okay. Here's another great question from Sally. She says, what about starting with online stores such as Amazon? Is it worth it in your opinion? I mean, you're talking about bricks and mortar shops and distributors, but what about the online stores? Do you think that's a good place to go?
Yeah, I think it's kind of critical these days that you're seen to. I mean, what you mustn't do is drop your prices in order to get on some of these websites, and they will ask you. You don't want your brand to appear cheaper online than it's going to if your target set at a key retailer, and Harrods mark up 150% plus VAT, which is a bit eye-watering. You don't want your stuff to be seen online at a cheaper price. So the eBays of this world I would actually avoid, but the Etsy's where you can control your pricing, and Amazon because it gives you wide exposure. Because you've got two battles. One is to get out there and get known. So don't always look at, the danger is you look at some of these big companies and you think, oh, I could sell loads through those. And the reality is quite often that doesn't happen at all. But what it's doing is giving you continuous exposure for your brand, which you can then build on and use when you're tackling the bigger fish.
Okay. Well, following on from that, here's a question from Rumby. She says, what do you think about beauty boxes in that respect? I mean, obviously, they're not necessarily selling your products, but they're promoting your products. Do you think that's a worthwhile project for an indie brand to get to engage in?
I think beauty, depending on the discounts that they're asking for, I think beauty boxes are great for clearing product that is reaching its sell-by date. So I don't mean a week before its sell-by date, but if you're selling to a key retailer, you've got to give them a reasonably long sell date. So if something is like 3 months, 6 weeks before the end of its sell-by date, that's great. If you've made a mistake and you've got too much stock in a particular part of your range, that's another great way to clear it, and at the same time it's giving you promotion. So I'm not convinced that in terms of I do like Try Me, Buy Me, but I'm not convinced that the beauty box is necessarily the best vehicle for that. It is a vehicle, but offering free product, small pots of free product in exchange for postage works.
Okay. Right, well, here's another good question from Claudia. She says, how should I plan how many products I will sell in my first year? And this is a question I've heard quite a lot of times from people. How many units should I be making? What should I be preparing for? Should I store my own product? What if I don't produce enough? Because there's this fear, I suppose, of spending all your capital on ingredients and making products and creating a huge amount of stock, which you then might not shift. Or, I suppose, on the flip side, you might not make enough and suddenly get a massive order and not be able to produce it in time. So what's your advice on that?
Well, first of all, you should carry as little stock as possible initially. You should create stock on order. So if you meet up with a distributor, they will suggest to you what sort of volume they will want. I mean, export is the interesting one, which I haven't touched on, because export is huge now, and probably the best opportunity for a small niche brand, upmarket brand. And I'm going to say this now, please go for the upmarket end. Don't try and be affordable. A lot of people come to me and they want an affordable range. But the problem is that middle market is so competitive, and you're competing with big guys who can put so much more money into promotion than you can. And you've got to produce huge volumes if your price is low. Sorry, I've gone off kilter here. Where was I? What was the question?
How many units of a product you want to
Okay. So, all right. So initially, what you're going to do is set your targets. So if you're going to say one department store, it's going to take you about 3-4 months to get into that department store. My experience: first order 500 from Harrods, 9,000 from House of Fraser. So I can't give you a definitive answer. It depends on whether the store is going to put you in one store or run you through all stores, which depends on how much they like your product. So, but anyway, so in terms of planning, it's difficult, it's tricky. But I don't believe that. I think you should have all your ducks in a row in terms of promotion, and you shouldn't actually commission runs until you have customers on board. So your manufacturer, we talked about contract manufacturers last time, is going to give you their minimum, or they're going to specify their lead time, and you pass that lead time onto the store or the major distributor. You could say, yes, I can deal with you, but it's going to take me 3 months to produce this, or 6 weeks, or whatever. So don't commit to any volumes unless you really, really have to. In terms of your cash flow, how fast can you sell? How much social media can you do? How powerfully can you build your brand? That's what determines the speed of your need for production.
Yeah. Okay, well, that makes perfect sense. Obviously, you don't want to be left with a huge amount of stock before anyone knows who you are. I've got a great question here from Lauren. Hi, Lauren. She says, how do you suggest we decide on how to price our products when going into our first buyers meetings, beside obviously the cost that goes into it? I mean, you can look at the cost price, you can look at your wholesale price, but then there's the retail price, which is a whole beast by itself. So she says, I believe my product is as good as a product that I've seen, which is about $250 for 50 mils, but I don't think I can charge that much.
Why not? Why not?
That's
okay. Let me have let's do a little bit of fun exercise here. Okay, so Lorraine, sorry, Lauren and Lorraine. I'm a seller, and I come to you and I say, I've got this product. It's full of shea butter and goat oil and fairy pea and all sorts of stuff that's going to be absolutely wonderful. But it's £45 a pot. But then I know that's a lot of money for you. I've got this other pot. It's also got cocoa butter and shea butter in it. It's £10 a pot. That's the one for you, isn't it? Now, how do you feel if I say that to you?
What, me or Lauren?
Well, both of you. Either. I mean, the point is, how I would feel is I would say, aren't I good enough for that expensive stuff? Why is she offering me the rubbish? You know, why is she offering me something cheap when we know this is a beautiful magic formula? Why isn't it good enough for me? You know, so it's about the decision that you make to buy something is about how you value yourself. And a buyer will buy or not buy from you for many reasons. She will not buy from you, I guarantee it, because you're cheaper than everyone else. That is one reason she will not buy from you. Okay, so you can charge what you like, you can charge right at the top of the ladder, but you have to have done the pieces behind that properly. You have to have positioned your brand. You know, it's the psychology again. It's stuff that I go through all the time with people, but the packaging has to be exquisite, the product has to be fabulous, and then it's what you feel it's worth.
Yeah.
And who you're targeting. It's who you're targeting.
Yes, because you
And
do
people
need to know who you're
still,
selling to.
I mean, indie brands still often go out there thinking, you know, that they can, look, this is the cost factor, okay? You've got to have the cost factor. You've got to have confidence. You've got to know your products and what they mean, who they're for. You've got to fully understand, and you've got to speak with authority when you're trying to sell it. And O is organization. You've got to be absolutely clear on your prices, your logistics, all those sort of commercial pieces, your margins, all those commercial pieces have to be in place. The S is for sympathy. You've got to have total sympathy with your buyer and understand how she works and what her decisions are made on. And the final S is for specialness. Your product needs to be special. It needs to be focused at a very tight market because you can't produce in massive volume as an indie producer. You can't afford to in the early days. You can later, but your product needs to be special. You have to be clear why it's special, and you have to be able to communicate that.
Yes, absolutely. And that goes for anything you sell. And I once read a fantastic book called Influence, which was all about the psychology of selling. In fact, I did that just before I took Formula Botanica to dizzy heights, so I would recommend everyone buy a copy of it because it certainly helped me a lot. A question that's come back a few times is about the level of markup and percentages. And people want to know, I mean, there's a question here from Diane. She says, what level of markup do retailers expect from you? So what should you be offering retailers and also distributors?
Okay. Well, first of all, you put 7 to cover yourself, absolutely basic. Before we talk about positioning and how much your end product should be, you should put 70% on top of the cost of your labor, ingredients, and packaging. You put 70% on that. That's your basic wholesale price. That's what you can afford to sell for. If you're thinking of dealing with a distributor, I would then add another 30–40% before I even approach a distributor. So you need these numbers in place before you approach anyone, so that then if you get a distributor, it doesn't actually matter if they want 40% because you've already costed that in. So you need to decide on your route to market. Now, a retailer that wants to survive in the current market will, at the very least, double your wholesale price and add VAT. And some of the prestige ones will go 150% minimum. And that's going to go up because they really are struggling they need to make money. And you need to, again, it's this empathy thing. If your retailer's doing well, you'll do well. So never begrudge what their markup is. But start from the base upwards. Build your price so that you will actually get what you want, no matter what happens beyond that.
Yeah.
So if you consider that your product should sell for 50 quid or 60 quid or whatever figure Lauren was thinking about, then you up your wholesale price and your margin is bigger. And you've also got more room to maneuver so that you can then afford a promotional budget. You can then afford to do special offers if it's required. You can afford to give away beautiful cosmetic bags with your products every now and then. You know, it's given you some leeway for promotion.
Yeah. Okay, we've got about 15 minutes left, and we've got dozens and dozens of questions. I'm sorry I'm not getting to all of them. I've had a few messages from people going, you haven't answered my question yet. I am reading them all, but please put them all in the Q&A box, because guys, I'm not monitoring the chat at the moment, given how many questions are coming in. Here's a question from Nicola from Fresh Therapies. Hi, Nicola. She says, Nicola, when you say the presentation to your buyer needs to be more pictures than words, what do they actually want to see? Are you talking about pictures of the product, sales figures, where you've already sold? Is there a certain sort of layout or template that you would follow?
No, I wouldn't put numbers in a presentation. I think all they need is the experience, a sense of the experience of the product and who's going to buy it. So in Nicola's case, which I happen to know is nails, it could be beautiful nails. It could be the actual process of using the product on the nails. It could be the product dripping down the page, whatever. And then with key statements across about what strap lines. It should be done in strap lines. Your paperwork, your prices. You could have something in there about the market. It's actually, I missed that out completely. Somebody asked me earlier what you should take to a buyer's meeting. If you can get statistics about the particular market that you're in, state them, have them in paper, have them on a presentation, show that you know your business and that you've done your research. Yeah, including quirky statistics, like how many men bought presents for their wives. That was, anything you can get hold of, do it. You could even do a big focus group and then show the results that you had in that focus group.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's move it on because we haven't got much time left. Here's a question from Emma. She says, you're talking about, it depends on who you are targeting, but how do I find that target person? And this is probably not the first time you've been asked that question, Melinda, but how do you find your target customer?
Will you come and see me? I mean, you've got to have your niche sorted out and your brand sorted out and know who your target customer is. And that's a lot to do with the products that you want to make. It's to do with who you are. It's to do with your lifestyle. There is a big piece involved in identifying your ideal client. And that's kind of what I do. It's part of what I do.
Here's a great question from Ken in Cape Town in South Africa. Hi, Ken. Thank you for joining us. He says, as a small handmade producer, how do you calculate your labor cost? I mean, this is a great question because when you start by yourself, you don't really value your own time. You try and keep it as cheap as possible. But the moment you start to outsource it, of course, it costs a little bit more than that. So how do you calculate your labor cost, Melinda?
Okay. All right. So I am not giving anything away free at this webinar. I am not. However, if you log on to my website and you join my mailing list, in a few weeks' time you'll get an email which will give you a free gift that will help you considerably with that. And I'm not sending it. Do not contact me or contact Lorraine about this. The only way you will get this piece of information is via going into my website and waiting for it. In fact, if you bully me, I won't send it to you, but that will help you. That will help you with that one. But basically, you need to do a time and motion study. So you make your standard batch of product, and you time absolutely every stage of that. Preferably, you get somebody else to make it, and then you work out how many products you were able to produce. And you divide that by the hourly rate that you're paying your staff, or actually do it at minimum wage, because that's really these days what you would have to pay somebody to. I'm back in soap here. Maybe you've got to pay cosmetic people more,
yeah.
But whatever you've got to pay the stirrer.
Yes,
the
fair enough.
The
reason we're laughing is last webinar we did, Melinda gave away a free business plan, and Formula Botanica is still receiving emails about it now. We'd never had the plan to start with. It was always with Melinda. So go to melindacost.com.
No, they can't even ask for it. All they've got to do, if you ask for it, you won't get it. All you've got to do is sign in to my website. There's an opt-in box that asks you if you want to receive mailings from us. That's all you've got to do.
Okay.
And then
melindacost.com.
Alison, are you listening to this? They're not to get it if they bully us. They only get it in a couple of weeks' time after they've signed my mailing list. Okay. If you contact Formula Botanica, you won't get it. I've got a blacklist.
Okay, we'll squeeze in a few more questions. Janine from Mexico City. Hi, Janine. Wow. She says, do you think it's better to produce your own products? And she is talking about handmade soap here. Or do you think we get people to manufacture our products? Because she says, I'm planning to get a community together to learn how to produce soap. So this sounds like a bit of a social enterprise.
Right.
Do you think it's better to outsource the manufacturing?
Hello, Janine. I met Janine at my soap course last weekend, I believe.
Brilliant.
Janine, if you're getting together a social enterprise and a community, then they will make your soap for you. No, that's a simple one. Absolutely simple. You certainly don't need to get anybody. You get them trained up and you get them to make it.
Okay. Right, I'm going to squeeze in two more questions here if I can. We've had a few questions from people about this pricing with distributors, and Camilla here says here, is it okay to have my products priced at one price online, and then customers are able to find it more expensive somewhere else? I mean, how does that work? Does that confuse the customer?
It upsets the retailer. What you need to do, I mean, the rule, look, you can't control what a retailer is going to sell your products at. If you got into Harrods, they would probably insist that your web price was not lower than their retail price, which is actually fair enough. And that can be a bit limiting because it's 100, you'd have to mark up your wholesale price by 150%. But as a standard rule of thumb, if you double your wholesale price and add VAT, that should be your trade price. That should be the price on your website. That doesn't stop you doing discount offers, special offers, giveaways, all sorts of things. Again, it gives you margin to do that. But again, don't be tempted to try and be cheap. Don't be tempted to try and undersell people, because all you'll do is upset your retailers. And people don't, it's honestly, at this level, people don't actually want a bargain. They want to feel special and important.
Okay, well, tagging on to that, here's a question from Equi. She says, how do you set prices in an already competitive market? So you said, go luxury, don't go affordable, because that middle brand, that middle band is so highly competitive already. So how do you set your prices if you're in that band? Foreign products are being imported, she says, and they're being sold at a medium price, and we're not in Harrods. So how do you set your prices there?
Equi is one of my clients, I should tell you that. Now, Equi, we know your products will be in Harrods. Forget about it. You're going to price your product high. End of. No, really, that's a question that I've answered about 3 times, I think. It's about understanding your positioning. It's about you don't want to be you can't afford as an artisan producer to be miss-average, one of a million brands out there. So you have to aim high, but you have to find that special golden nugget in your product, in your promotion, that will communicate that value. This is all about value. How do people value your brand and why?
Okay. This is what you get when you're one of Melinda's clients. She tells you you're going to be in Harrods, and she gets you in there, obviously, which is quite exciting to see.
Well, I don't get them in there, but I bully them to think that, because
maybe they do it
that's
themselves.
the target.
Yes. Yeah. One more question, because it's already almost 9 o'clock here in the UK and 10 o'clock where Melinda is. From Rosa. Rosa says, let's say you're successful with a buyer. What do they typically expect in terms of average turnover time to fulfill your order? What are they expecting from you?
It depends. I mean, these days, most buyers like to carry as little stock as possible and might order on a weekly basis, but it really depends how their systems are set up. Some will order from you once a month. They'll start off with a trial order in one store, maybe, or I mean, most buying groups divide their stores into categories. So the stores in the key major areas or their bigger stores will fall under one category, and that's probably where they would start you off. And then you might go to the more regional stores later. I can't answer that because I think every company is actually different, but your buyer should, once you've got to the point where they're going to take you on, your buyer will tell you. And what your lead time is. You have to express what lead time you can provide, basically. But once you've got an idea of volume, it's up to you to. This is running your business. It's up to you to organise your volume.
Okay, shall we? I think we probably
but can I just say one little nugget, which is always worth remembering, is that you should. when you go in to sell, you are selling the result. Okay, so it's the result for the buyer in terms of this product's going to walk off your shelf. I'm totally efficient. I'm going to deliver on time. I'm going to meet all your logistics needs. Um, the result. You're not, and if you're selling the result to a consumer, it's this is going to make you beautiful. It's going to make you 10 years younger. Whatever. But that's what you're selling. You're not selling the process. Your story is really valuable as a backstory, but it's not your key selling tool.
Those are very powerful words, and I hope that you guys got a lot out of that. Right, we've done our full hour. Really sorry if we didn't get to answer your question. We received just dozens and dozens of them. They're still coming in now. So I hope we managed to address a lot of the questions that you had around to stores, to distributors all around the world. And obviously, we look forward to watching you sell your products all around the world as well. As you've probably seen, a little box will have popped up, which is Melinda's offer, which isn't really an offer as such. I mean, you can book a free half-hour discovery call with Melinda. If you're watching the replay tomorrow or in the next week or so, then you can also do that by going to melindacost.com. So I hope that you get 800 free discovery calls, Melinda. You're going to have a very busy month or 3 ahead of you. Melinda runs a 12-week mentoring program.
16 weeks.
And,
16 weeks.
16 weeks. Oh gosh, I'm so sorry. 16 weeks. And she will help you build your successful natural skincare brand. Now, if you click on the link that's come with this webinar and you end up buying this 16-week mentoring program with Melinda, you will get an additional 5% discount thanks to Formula Botanica. So yay for us. Melinda, do you just want to tell everyone a little bit more about how your mentoring program works?
Yes, I take you on your journey from the conception of your idea right through to all the things we've discussed and what your branding should be, what your niche should be, and I'm basically holding your hand. You're doing the work, but I'm holding your hand and keeping you on the straight and narrow. I've got to say I'm getting very old, and I only take on 8 people for my mentoring course. My next one starts in September, and I already have 4, so there are only going to be 4 places on offer. So if you're interested in that, please book your discovery call this week, because otherwise I can't promise that there'll be any places available.
Which is fair enough. And you also said that the prices are going up if you book after August,
right?
After
August the 1st, the price is going up by £500, yeah.
Right. So that's what you want to do. You want to book your free half-hour discovery call with Melinda, and she will also find out if you're the right fit for working with her.
Yes, it's very important, really important. Yeah. I only take on people that I really feel have got the capacity to succeed and build their brand.
Yes. Excellent. But on that note, there are a few exciting things coming up with Formula Botanica, which Melinda will also be forming a part of. We're running a big competition for Organic September, which starts on the 1st of September, where you will even be able to win some free coaching time with Melinda, as well as some free courses from Formula Botanica. So keep a close eye on your inbox in September. Also, the Formula Botanica conference, which at the moment is only available for students and graduates. The tickets are already on sale, although we've sold about 2/3 of them already. Melinda's going to be a speaker at the conference in November. So if you are a Formula Botanica student, then now's the time to buy your ticket to come and meet Melinda in person, which is quite exciting, and me obviously, and the rest of the Formula Botanica team. So we're going to have a lot of fun, and there's going to be a live pitching panel there. Actually, we've got a senior beauty buyer from Ocado, which is the world's largest online supermarket. So 3 people will get the opportunity to pitch their brand to Ocado, which is quite exciting. So on that note, I think we've pretty much covered everything in tonight's webinar. Thank you very much for joining us. I mean, I can still see hundreds of you here tonight, so it's been great that you've joined us for this webinar. I hope that you got a lot out of it. The replay will be going out tomorrow, so you'll be able to watch it again and get all those nuggets of wisdom that Melinda threw at us over the last hour. And yes, and no doubt there will be more webinars coming in the coming months, so keep a close eye on your inbox. So I'm just going to hand over to Melinda to say goodnight, and then I will be back to do the same.
Okay, everyone, lovely to talk to you, and I wish you luck with your projects, and I hope that I'll hear from some of you. Okay.
Yes.
No asking for the the gift.
The freebie.
Just go over and just go over. It won't take you a minute. Just go over and sign yourself in.
Yes, melindacourse.com.
Yes.
All right, and if you're interested in Formula Botanica courses, obviously formulabotanica.com as well. Thank you very much, and good night, and the replay will be with you shortly. Goodbye.
Bye.